Welcome to the Run Out. I am Neil Barrett. He is not Brandon Hooten. Brandon had to work this week, and so I am joined by friend of the show, Mr. Jackson Van Vlake. Jackson, this is the first time you and I was even thinking about it, even in our group chat. I don't think we've really talked much directly. This is the first time we've really gotten together since the end of Gold Rush, the podcast that you and I did for the championship series back in February, which then I was thinking about and I was like, wait, you missed the last episode of that because you got stuck traveling. So good to see that sometime between February and now you did make it home officially.
Yes. That's right.
How's it been since mid-February or late February? I don't even remember when that was.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, life is great. As an Archers fan, there's some things to be desired, but it's great to be back. Love talking lax, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on. Always glad when you can jump on and talk some game, and we'll get to your Archers pretty soon.
Don't do me too bad on them.
With that said, let's get into week 5 action. We will start with the Outlaws beating the California Woods in the first homecoming game of the weekend. The Outlaws ran out of there with an 18-12 victory. This game was, I don't know, man. I don't know about what you felt. I always felt like the Outlaws were not going to end up winning this game, even though they started hot and kind of never really were in danger. I just always kind of felt like they were, even though they weren't, I guess.
100%. Yeah, the box score didn't tell the whole story. It was very close throughout most of the game, and the Redwoods were not going to let them just walk out of their home stadium with a win. So, I think Chase Erlin played well. That attack line for the Redwoods is only going to continue to get better. Dylan Malloy has been, if there was a comeback player of the year and it wasn't just restricted to injury, I think it would 100% be Dylan Malloy. So it's been really fun to watch him. And then, of course, the Taforaton, or whatever you want to call the Outlaws offense, has been, what people thought it was going to be. The one play where, I was watching the game when Brennan kind of split to the left and kind of passed up a shot to pass it back to Wisnauskas, and then he found Pat Cavanaugh on the doorstep. That's just kind of what you expect out of 3 Taforaton winners plus Bernhardt. So,
also a Taforaton winner. Correct.
So, and then obviously McNaney has been superb in his first 3 starts. I think we'll get to this later. I'm not ready to crown him, best goalie in the league, top whatever goalie in the league, but if he keeps stringing together some starts like this, he will definitely be in that conversation.
Yeah, like you said, we'll maybe talk about that a little bit later, but I'm with you on that. This game, from a Redwoods point of view, I thought was an Andrew McAdory coming out party. I know we've probably said that before, but I thought he was everywhere. He was playing offense, he was playing defense, he was running in transition, he was doing everything. Led the Redwoods in points with 5 on 2 goals, a 2-pointer, which was crazy. I watched him at Duke. I think it was. Oh, was it Boston that he threw that ball in right as time was about to expire? He just kind of hucked it from 30 yards and it went in. And that was about as far as I'd ever really seen him even attempt. Well, of course that was as far, because that was literally a 35 yard shot, but he's not really known as a distant shooter. So to see him step up and just hit a 2 like that was really impressive. I think he is going to be a huge key for that Redwoods team and their hopes of making it a deep run. Sam English, I thought looked very good too. Those two are going to be a very good two-way. Again, both of those guys play both ends of the field. Dylan Malloy is Dylan Malloy. He didn't have the world's greatest game, only finished with 2 points, but it's so fun to watch him play, just the way he plays. He has like a that reckless kind of nature to it, but like in like a super fun way.
Yeah, he's going to dodge through you. I mean, he will
Yeah.
put his head and shoulder down and go through your chest.
But you know what's so funny to me about Dylan Malloy is that, like, yeah, absolutely, he's that bully. He is going to go through you, but he also has like this I almost say weird, it's not weird, but it weird in terms of like juxtaposition of game styles. He has this weird like finesse and grace about his game. He'll like bully through your chest, and then the second he has it, he just has like this super slick like move to the one where he came around from X, and I can't even remember who was guarding him, and he just lowered his shoulder and went through him. And then the way he shot on McNaney, he like, it looked to all the world like he was going to pull it near side, and he just kind of laid it up to, I don't even think he shot it all that hard, but he just laid it into the far corner, and it was so deceptive and so smooth. And I was blown away by that, even though I think it kind of got glossed over a little bit. But yeah, I think we'll talk about their second game later, but it's funny to watch this team, and you feel good about, like, when you watch them play, you feel good about all the pieces they have and everything they're doing. And then again, we'll probably get into it a little bit later. They lose games, and it's just like, I don't fully understand it. But yeah, the real story has got to be the Outlaws here, and that offense looks like it's starting to click and starting to figure things out. Obviously, Logan McNaney in net has really changed things, like you said. Not ready to crown him yet, and even if I want to put him in the conversation, I'm not saying he's better than several of the guys, but I think he's kind of entering that conversation. Obviously, he's 3 games in. We kind of want to see him keep that up, but the big huge story here's got to be Pat Cavanaugh. If we're talking, the Outlaws season, Pat Cavanaugh has turned into the guy for them. The previous 2 games, he had 50 plus touches. This time he had a modest 38. He still led the team in touches, but for those 38 touches, he finished with 8 points on 5 goals and 3 assists. He shot 62.5% though. Like that's crazy. Excuse me, even for an attackman playing that close to goal, 60 plus percent shooting is crazy.
Yeah. The move to him, or the move for him to his natural position at X, has been, game changing. And I understand the Cannons not wanting to give up Asher playing at X, but you could have figured out some kind of system there. But the trade has worked out beautifully for both teams, and it's been fun to see kind of what he's been able to do. Like you said, I mean, scoring and feeding. Just the energy that he brings has been really fun to watch.
Yeah. And this game was really interesting because, I mean, all 4 of your guys were your top 4 leading scorers. So that was really cool. I was really impressed. I don't think Brennan O'Neill had the best game in the world, but he still finished with 4 points. He was second on the team in points. And the thing that I was most impressed with, we have talked about this ad nauseum, probably, the fact that Brennan O'Neill has a tendency, especially against bigger defenders that are physical defenders, he has a tendency to sit back and let himself be taken out of the game. We talked about it last week with Graham Hossack. He kind of let himself be pulled out of the game, knowing that Graham Hossack was going to kind of sit on that matchup, and they had a lot of success kind of dodging in the direction of Brennan O'Neill, knowing that slide wasn't going to come. They weren't going to slide off of Brennan O'Neill. And this week I was really impressed. I was worried because I thought, this is, he's going up against Chris Fake, who he has since college had some struggles going up against. And this game, I really liked seeing he didn't kind of recede. He didn't let himself be taken out of the game. He didn't always succeed, but he was taking the game. You talked about the play where, you know, he didn't end up with the assist, but he was the one that created the initial dodge, that created the defense moving, that then he banged it back to Pat, and Pat, I don't know, was it Logan that he found on the inside? I don't remember, but
No,
either way,
the feed was from Logan to Pat.
Yeah. And then there was the other one where I think it was Jared Bernhardt had the ball back at X, and he's looking to feed Brennan O'Neill, who's cutting through the middle and it's open, but he ends up kind of overthrowing it, and it ends up with again, I think it was Logan, I think, behind Brennan O'Neill. Mm-hmm. And so again, there were so many things I noticed from Brennan in this game that aren't going to show up on a stat sheet that I thought were really good signs, because again, like, as we have talked about so many times, Brennan has some tendency to kind of fade out of games. And I was like, you know, if he's going to be this guy when he's not, you know, putting up high numbers all the time, and they can still get this level of performance out of him, then what's it like when he is putting up, when he is hitting? Because I still don't think he's shooting super well, but you know, he's going to be that dude, I think. And I think this game had a much better balance. I worry, and some of this might be a little bit of Pat Cavanaugh. Hate is a strong word. I'm not going to say hate, but just a little bit of, you know, how long can Pat keep this up kind of thing. We talked a couple weeks ago about Chris Cavanaugh, and if this was the Chris Cavanaugh that they were going to get, that like secondary kind of off ball score, then like it was a great pick. And I feel like Pat is also kind of benefiting from that, in that, you know, Brennan O'Neill, I think Jared Bernhardt at this point are probably higher on the like list of like who you feel like you need to shut down, and it's working to Pat Cavanaugh's benefit
100%.
like very much.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two most unstoppable forces on offense are Brennan O'Neill sweeping to the left and Jared Bernhardt streaking out of the box, and the Outlaws have both of those. And so even if Brennan doesn't fill up the stat sheet, when he comes from that right wing up to the top, you've got to send another guy. And so that's just going to, and he may not always get the assist, but somebody's got to be open. If there's two guys on Brennan O'Neill, somebody is open. And so, you know, but you can't leave him there at the top of the arc by himself, because he's gonna hammer it. And then obviously, you know, I don't think there's an answer to Jared Bernhardt streaking out of the box. I mean,
no.
If there was 99 speed in a PLL lacrosse video game, it would be Jared Bernhardt, and I don't think there's anybody from 99 to 95. I mean, he is that much faster than everybody else on the field, I think.
Yeah, maybe Zach Geddes gets up there somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not.
But I don't want Zach Geddes with a short stick on him, and they're on the same team. So
yeah, fair.
You know, yeah, they're both matchup nightmares, and with the exception of maybe like a Rowlett or a Hossack or JT Giles Harris, who's also on the Outlaws, I don't trust a whole lot of other guys one-on-one with Brennan O'Neill at the top of the arc.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, you have to send that second guy, which leaves somebody open.
Well, yeah. Well, and even we talked about this last week after the Archers Outlaws game, that I think Brennan can beat the. I mean, it's going to be way more even. Like you said, I'm gonna maybe not slide as quick if Graham Hossack is covering him or not, but like I think he can beat some of those guys. You know, it's not necessarily like he's going to just shut him out, but right. Yeah, it's I'm with you. And there were times when, not even based off of like a pick, you know, where you go like a big little pick and you end up getting them to create the switch that puts a shorty on you. There were just times when Pat Cavanaugh was getting a shorty just based on like how things were shaking out on the offense. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if Pat Cavanaugh is going against a shorty, especially from behind the cage or out on the right hand side, that's advantage Pat Cavanaugh, even if I am not, you know, necessarily the biggest fan of his game and how it translates in the PLL. I'm going to take that every time. So again, it's just one of those situations where it's like you just don't have enough people to cover all of the weapons that they have. So,
Right.
you know, it's tough, and they look like a team that is figuring it out, and if they do, they have pretty much all of the pieces, it feels like. So, you know, tough. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later too, but for now, let's move on to your least favorite game of the weekend with the Outlaws, with the Atlas taking on the Archers. The Atlas won that game 10-8. You are the Archers guy, so I'm going to let you go ahead with this one.
Well, let me just give you some numbers here. So let me just say this out loud and you tell me what you think. So 8-8, 12-10-8 are the scores that the Archers have put up through 5 games.
Yep.
If we're going by Archers' defensive standards, that is 3 ice cream games for the other team. We have only had 2 ice cream games on defense, and that would be why we're 2-3. And my thing with the Archers offense is, okay, yes, we're missing Trey Leclerc. Yes, he was a second team All-Pro last year. Yes, he's a matchup nightmare and gives us another outside shooting threat. On the other hand, it can't be just Trey Leclerc that's going to make this offense click. And really, not that he and Sam King played the same game, but Sam King has been amazing this year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, and obviously we really missed Trey this week because with Matt Moore out, Trey would have been the guy to slide in at attack. And instead, we played Max Merklinger for a half or 3/4 or whatever it was until Sam King went down there. But it was the perfect game. It was the perfect defensive scheme by the Atlas, where you just put Danny Logan on the attackman, and then you get to double pull the midfield. I mean, it couldn't have been a worse matchup for Matt Moore to be out. But there are other issues with the offense. I mean, Mac O'Keefe, he had 3 points this week, but it was a goal and 2 assists. And it's just not the game that you're used to seeing Mac O'Keefe play. The turnover numbers from Tom Schreiber have been atrocious, and a lot of them have been in big moments towards the end of the game where you're used to seeing him, make that pass or sting a corner, and he just has had the ball sail out of his stick or get knocked out of his stick. I'm not ready to push the panic button yet, but goodness gracious, my hand is right over it. I mean,
they feel like the Waterdogs did last year, where it's 100%. Like you just don't. They're not winning games, and you can't quite figure out why. It's not like you look at any section of their team and you're like, oh, this is bad. I think Sisselberger has not been very good this year, but he's the only kind of section of the team that you can look at and say they have not been good enough. It feels like the midfield's been pretty good. The offense has been relatively good, even though they can't seem to score 10 plus points consistently. Like you said, Mac O'Keefe is not shooting well, but I also feel like, other guys, Sam King, you mentioned, has kind of stepped up. I think Grant Ament has played pretty well. It's just, they just don't make any sense as to why they aren't winning games. And it's hard to talk about them because they are the 2-time defending champions, and they still have, largely the team that they won those 2 championships 100%. With. And so you just kind of feel like they're going to figure it out, but they just haven't yet. And I thought as much as I don't think Merklinger was, having a strong impact on the game, I did find it interesting that when they made the switch to Sam King down low, that's when it felt like everything went just completely flat for them. I'm not going to put these words in your mouth. I will say them. For a long time, because you and I go back because we were both Archers fans back originally. And I used to say all the time, Bates going to Bates. And he had a tendency, although some of it might not have been entirely on him, let's give him that grace, but he had a tendency to, down the stretch, make a decision that was going to cost the team game. The last, I think, 2 years, we can say he hasn't really done that at all. This one felt to me like he tweaked something that didn't need to be tweaked. And I don't want to say it lost them the game, but it certainly didn't help them in any way. And I really felt like after that switch, that offense looked so flat. That first quarter, I was like, oh, they've actually figured it out. It felt like we were going to get, 12, 14 points out of them. That defense was running. It was clicking. The offense was clicking. I mean, and then of course the defense is the defense. For as not good as their record is, they're rarely letting in more than 10 goals, and even then it's usually maybe 12, which I would feel pretty good in this league about this defense
100%.
doing what it's doing if we could get any kind of consistency out of that offense at all.
And he didn't have the numbers this game, but I mean, Brett Dobson is keeping this team in games. The defense and Brett Dobson are keeping this team in games. He had 10 saves at 50% this week, but I mean, especially down the stretch, he makes a lot of great saves in big moments in games. Obviously, the one we all think about is the one that won them the 2023 championship, but he does that very consistently where, I mean, you look 2 weeks ago, I mean, the Redwoods almost tied that game in the last, half a minute, and he just came up with they're not always like wow saves, but he makes those saves in the biggest moments of games. And obviously, Graham Hossack is a potential decoy this year. I've been very impressed with Brennan Lavelle. The move to me that I thought was going to be so much better this season was Mason Woodward to LSM. I just feel like I haven't seen. I mean, he hangs out on offense. I don't know if he has a point. I think he has 1 point this year, but I just thought that and ground balls on the wings. The Archers face-off wings have not been good for the last 2 years. Whenever we win a face-off, it's Mike Sisselberger winning it to himself. Because you see that, the LSM goes in to the scrum, but the defensive midfielder kind of goes and sits in the hole. And then we've recently been, and I don't know, I don't know enough about a face-off to know the logistics, but they've now been putting a defensive midfielder at attack and having them run all the way across, and Sis is running off early, which I think hasn't burned us too bad yet. But once teams key in on that, I think there's going to have to be something there. And we had 6.5 minutes less possession time. We've got to win faceoffs too, but we've also got to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah. I think this is the crazy thing to me is that Mike Sisselberger won 3 faceoffs in this game, and prior to going scoreless in the fourth quarter, it was an 8-8 game, which really kind of shows that it doesn't matter that Trevor was at 85+%. They could have easily still lost that game. And to your point, I don't think the wing play has been good. I think those, especially on faceoffs, it hasn't been good. But again, faceoffs is like the one spot that you can point to that you're like, this is not working. But it's also the part that's probably the least impactful on why they aren't winning.
Right.
Because again, he had 3 wins in the whole game, and it was still an 8-8 game coming into the fourth quarter. And if they can even remotely keep pace, it's good. It's funny, like we say, Brett Dobson didn't have a great game. I don't think he had a bad game, but he didn't have a great game, and he's still at 50%. And then you look across to the other end of the field, and Liam Intamin was only at 50% too.
Yep.
So
well, he only had to make 8 saves to be 50%. So
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I did just look it up. Mason Wilbur has no points this year. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of how the year started for him, and then he figured it out in the second half. So I'm still very optimistic about the team. I mean, best goalie in the world. You've still got Tom Schreiber, who obviously needs to clean it up a little bit, but I mean has I think 13 points this year. You know, will be an all-star. And you still have Mac O'Keefe, Grant Amon, and then you got Trey Leclerc coming back. I mean, I think next week or in 2 weeks is going to be a lot of fun because you'll both teams, Waterdogs and Archers, will have big names coming back to the offense. So that should be a lot of fun.
yeah. Well, and I mean, you didn't even mention Sam King, who I think is right there in the Rookie of the Year conversation right now. So I'm kind of with you. I think we're all kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt in that like they will figure it out and they will make a push. One of the things that again we'll probably talk about in a little bit is how balanced this whole we talk. I feel like I'm more than anything. I say the margins in this league are razor thin. This year feels like that to just kind of an nth degree because it's so balanced and they have not played well. I don't know how they're going to figure out like what the issues are and correct them and stuff, but you say all that and then you're like, yeah, they're only one game behind them. They could easily they could come back from the All-Star break and rattle off 5 wins and be like the number one team in the league. And, no one will be all that surprised. They'll be like, yeah, I mean, it's the Archers. It's what they do.
Yeah. So, I do think they have a very favorable back end of the schedule. You've got Waterdogs next week neutral. Then you have Chaos the following week neutral. Then you've got a 2-game homestand against the Redwoods and the Outlaws. And you play the Chaos in Boston. I think all 5 of those games are very winnable. Mm-hmm. So, and I definitely would have liked the Chaos to have another loss, but, we'll get to this in a minute. But if Blaze Riorden doesn't stand on his head, that team doesn't win games. So, and you don't know what you're getting with the Redwoods. So if you can limp into the playoffs, we've seen a 2-7 team win a championship before. So,
all that matters is that you make
just
the
got to
games.
Get there.
Yeah. You brought up the Waterdogs. That feels like a good time to transition to game 3. The Waterdogs beat the California Redwoods 12-9. The Redwoods become the first team so far this season to go 0-2 in their homecoming weekend. In fact, I think they might be the first team at all to lose both homecoming weekend games. I don't think that happened last year. I might be wrong. I don't know who did it if they did, but
I don't think nobody comes to mind. I know that there were way more 2-0 weekends.
Yes.
Last year. Yes. I know the Atlas were 2-0 in theirs. The Archers were 2-0 in theirs. The Cannons, I remember, were 1-1.
Yeah, I think Carolina was 1-1.
Denver, I think, was 1-1. But yeah, I mean,
all that to say, no one's gone 2-0 this year. Everyone's gone 1-1, and then the Redwoods are the first team to go 0-2. So that was crazy. They also had a scoreless fourth quarter. I know you listen to Stick Talk and Shane's always over there beating that drum that like you cannot in this league, you cannot go scoreless in a quarter. And it was one of the first things that I noticed was that the Woods and the Archers both in the fourth quarter. I think especially in the second half, you cannot go. You can maybe overcome going scoreless in the first, maybe even the second. It's rare that even that happens. I think generally if you don't score for a quarter, it's a big problem. But we've seen a couple of teams overcome an early, a slow start early, but you definitely can't do it late in a game. There's just not enough time to make up for that. So I think that was a big deal. This was kind of the Romar Dennis game, I think, a little bit, where he had his best outing really in a long time. I'm trying to think of the last time outside of the championship series where Romar's had a game where he looked this good.
Yeah.
Finishing the game with 4 points.
Yeah, I think somebody brought up the point that he's kind of like the main PLO pro in the youth, whatever, the PLO juniors or whatever you want to call it out west. And so maybe he was he knew he had to put on for all the kids in the stands and, whatever it was, or feeding off that energy. But yeah, definitely a great game from him. And I just counted only 5 players on the Woods with points in that second game, which is rough. Nothing from Ryder, nothing from English, nothing from Hanley. Dennis with 4, Malloy and Kavanaugh with 2, Balcarell and McAdory with 1. So it's tough as an Arch fan. I know it's tough to win a game if you don't score at least 10. So I thought it was an interesting move too that they did not have Cole Kastner in the lineup for that second game. Maybe it's working him back a little bit more off of injury, or this was the first game was his first game back, and maybe they want him to see things from the sidelines. I couldn't tell if he was on the sidelines for any of those games before he came back. It'll be interesting to see kind of where they insert him back into that lineup, because very high on Cole Kastner. I think he's got 6'7", moves very well, and really I think he could have been the first defender off the board in the last 2 years. So it'll be hard to keep a guy like that out of your starting lineup.
And yeah, okay. I just wanted to double check. He played in the first game, and I thought he looked pretty good. He ended up he had 2 caused turnovers, 1 ground ball, only on 5 touches, which is crazy. I thought he looked pretty good. I'm like you. I was really perplexed on why they sat him. Like you said, maybe it was a rest. Maybe he, was just kind of working his way back in or what not. But it definitely felt like a weird decision to sit him for this game. And I think it was a game that it looked like they could have used him in. So it's 100%. Interesting. It's interesting to see how well this game went. You know what's really weird to me? I'm just looking at the stats and I'm realizing I saw a tweet earlier. I didn't realize Dylan Ward was in goal for this game. Yeah. I don't know why. I did not. I thought it was Matt DeLuca the whole time. And then I saw a tweet this morning about Dylan Ward being in goal, and I was like, Dylan Ward wasn't in goal. What are you talking about? And then I just looked over and saw his name. Either way,
kind of a rough go at it for him to start, but man, what a performance down the stretch. I mean, the Woods had several really, really good looks at some 2-pointers down the stretch, and obviously he gave up 3 of them in the first half, but made some really, really great saves, and 1 wow save down the stretch on some 2-point goals. So it was a really great outing from him. And as we were coming off the Cole Kastner talk, let's talk about Ben Wayer with 2 points for the Waterdogs this week. Really, really cool to kind of see him getting into the flow. He had one goal, 1 assist. So really, 3rd round pick. There's something about 3rd rounders in the PLL. Obviously, TJ Malone's in the MVP conversation this year. Sam King firmly in the Rookie of the Year conversation. Ben Wayer looking great.
I think the reason for that though is that for some reason there's a lot of like 1st round talent guys that for some reason I think by and large your 2nd rounders are like 2nd round guys. But for some reason, especially the last 2 or 3 years, we've had this thing where there's like these 1st round talent levels that have maybe a question or 2 about them. And those guys end up going after the 2nd round guys. Like in the 2nd round, guys want to take their like 2nd round talent. And then the 3rd round, they go back to that like 1st round talent that maybe has a question about it. Yep. And they're like, well, if it doesn't work out, it was only a 3rd rounder or whatever. But then what ends up happening is that they work out, and it's like I remember last year's draft, we were all sitting in that group chat like, why is no one taking TJ Malone? This doesn't make any sense. And so my whole thing last year was when people were like, he was the sleeper of the draft. And I'm like, he wasn't a sleeper. Everyone made a dumb choice. Like, we were all wondering why they hadn't taken TJ Malone. It didn't make any sense why he fell that far. And then he proved to be like the guy we all thought he would be. So like, I don't understand. I don't know. We had a whole debate about it last year, and I was the only one that seemed to think that he shouldn't qualify as a sleeper because we all knew what he was. So I will take being wrong on that. But it just, to me, a sleeper is a guy that's like literally a sleeper. Like, oh man, we didn't know this guy was going to be this guy.
Walker.
Right. Exactly. That guy's a sleeper.
Yes.
The other, thing about this game is I don't understand this Waterdogs team. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, obviously they figured it out and they won the game, but watching the first half of that game, it was like, I don't know. I felt like, again, we talked about it in the first game. I never felt like the Waterdogs were going to win. And then they just kind of did. I don't know. It's so weird watching them. I didn't feel like they were super connected. I didn't feel like they were playing super well. And then you kind of look back at it, and like you said, Dylan Ward, 67% in goal. Mm-hmm. Michael Sowers ended up with 4 points, which isn't a crazy high number, but I mean, that's solid performance out of your kind of number one guy. Jack Hanna looked good.
I think
Carl had 3 points.
That was the big thing for me. I think he looked a little off in the first half and then really turned it on in the second.
Sowers?
Jack Hanna.
Jack Hanna, okay.
Because I remember I tuned into that game a little late, and I remember seeing and hearing the announcers talk about, oh, we haven't seen Jack Hanna be a factor today, and then all of a sudden it was bang, bang, bang. He has 3 goals. So, and then, I mean, Thomas McCombie's having a season kind of like Trey Leclerc did. That, they have similar-ish games. McCombie's a little bit more of an inside shooter and Trey's an outside shooter, but when they shoot the ball, I think McCombie's shooting like 40-something% on the season. Not a ton of touches, but making the most of them.
42%.
I'm sorry?
42% on the season.
Yeah. So, I mean, only 2 goals in the game, but only took 4 shots. So, shooting 50%. So, this Waterdogs team, like the Archers, is very good on paper. And I think a lot of teams in the PLL are, but, those two in particular, you just kind of look at them and you're like, well, why aren't you winning games? And obviously the Waterdogs took care of business this weekend, but there's definitely still some questions. Obviously, got to figure out who's going to stand between the pipes for you. And really, they have some questions in the midfield a little bit. Mickey Schlosser has played a couple of games for them. And then, kind of what do you do with CJ Kirst in a couple of weeks? So I'll be really interested to see kind of what happens there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's definitely some questions in that midfield. To me, the Waterdogs, and they'll probably prove me wrong. I'm not suggesting I'm onto something here. They will almost 100% prove me wrong. They feel almost like the opposite of the Archers, whereas like I expect that at some point the Archers are going to figure it out and do enough. They'll make the playoffs. They'll make a little run. Maybe they don't win it all, but they'll kind of figure it out. The Waterdogs feel to me almost the opposite of. It's like I expect that at some point they're going to lose a couple of games they shouldn't lose. They'll probably still make the playoffs. They're in a good position to make it, but like they just won't make the deep run that we expect. And again, now that I've said it, they will almost 100% win the championship and, just blow the doors off of people. But they just feel like a team that like hasn't figured it out and won't, like you said, Dylan Ward was great yesterday, but is he the guy that's going to be in net for them the rest of the year? I don't know. It feels like this is Matt DeLuca's job, but then also, why did Dylan Ward get the start yesterday? When, as far as I'm aware, Matt DeLuca's healthy and ready to go. So I don't know. It's interesting. They got Christian Scarpello back. Like you said, they're getting CJ Karst back. So, or not back necessarily. They're adding him to this mix. So there's some good things happening, but also it's kind of like, and again, we'll probably get into this in a little bit, but what does that do to Jake Taylor, and how does that affect this offense that has thus far felt very balanced and one of the, I don't know if I want to say best offenses. They're certainly up there as a very good offense, but the thing that sticks out to me when I watch this offense is they're all balanced, and it feels like everyone has a role. Like they're all kind of settled into their role, even beyond just the fact that it's so balanced. So I don't know how I feel about this team in a lot of ways, even though obviously the Waterdogs won. In a lot of ways, I feel like the Redwoods feel like maybe not the better team, but the team that's in the better position, if that makes sense.
100%.
So with that being said, let's move on to the last game of the weekend, the upset of the weekend, without a doubt, with the Carolina Chaos beating the previous number one team in the PLL, the Boston Cannons, 14-12. This game was weird.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I don't even know what to say. Like, how did they win this game? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Looking at the box score now, only one goal scored in the fourth quarter. So again, if you don't score in the fourth quarter, you can't win games. But I mean, give credit where credit is due. There has been a lot of stuff said on Twitter today by some players, and you have to give credit to Blaze. He had 21 saves, good for 65%. And this is, I'm not a Chaos fan. Some might say I'm a Chaos hater. You got the best game that Sergio Perkovic will probably play in the rest of his career. 4 points from him. And the only goal in the fourth quarter was a 2-pointer by Ray Dearth. And it took 21 saves from Blaze to win this game. Now a win's a win's a win. There's no pictures on a scorecard, but you can't come on Twitter and pretend like you just did something, or that criticism is not warranted when you just got 14 balled by the Whip Snakes last week on the back end of their doubleheader. So congratulations, Chaos, on your win. Maybe a little bit more grace and victory.
Here's my thing. My thought is this. I'm not going to take a dump on them winning the game. We can say it took this and it took that and it took that. It took what it took. They won the game. Like, props to them. I got no if it takes Blaze getting to 66% to win a lacrosse game, if that's what he's doing, then whatever. I mean, I've seen goalies have better performances and lose. So, I'm not gonna poo-poo him too much for that. Especially, I doubt Sergio has many more games like that. I'm not gonna say he's never gonna do that again, but it was certainly a surprise that he did that. I thought Owen Hiltz looked good in ways that I don't expect Owen Hiltz to look. He actually scored a couple of goals off of a dodge, which I really don't expect from him. Maybe a redodge or a cut or something. I tend to think of Owen Hiltz a little bit more as a finisher, but he certainly showed a little bit more than that yesterday. So I'm going to give him props. Ross Scott looked so good yesterday.
He was a spark plug for them for sure.
For sure. So
and I thought, no, I'm sorry, I was reading it wrong. He did only have 3 assists. I thought he had 3 goals. He had 3 assists.
Yeah.
Because that's the part of his game that I noticed. I mean, he may be a 97 or 98 speed.
It's true. Quickness at least.
Yes. But yeah, he was a matchup nightmare. And they were sending slides, and there was just somebody open, and he made the most of it. So yeah, I was really, really impressed with his game.
I'm wondering where this leaves the Cannons, because I think coming in, I think I saw on the PLL app only like 8% of people had picked the Chaos. Like, it was, Cannons were heavy favorites. Chaos were coming off of the worst loss in PLL history, which is not necessarily representative of how good they are or have been this season. And it's not necessarily representative of who they were going to be the rest of this season. So I don't want to dwell too much on that, but I think they are safely the worst team in the league. Like, I don't want to be mean or harsh or anything, but like, it just is that. Like, it's not a great team. Doesn't mean they can't win games. Doesn't mean they won't, win an extra game and slip into the playoffs or something. But I think that they are safely the worst team in this league. It's like we talked about last year. The Waterdogs had the worst record in the league. They were not the worst team last year.
Yeah.
They lost 6 1-goal games. Your record doesn't necessarily reflect the talent level of your team. But when you are 3-1 and you are the best team in the league so far, you should win that game.
Yeah.
Especially, again, we talked about it in the previous 2 games. It was a tie game coming into the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
The Cannons cannot go scoreless there. We can talk about whether or not it should have even been a tie game. I mean, again, you are playing the worst team in the league. Again, at least on paper, whatever. So whether or not it should have even been a tie game at that point, I mean, it was 4-1 after the first quarter, and you thought the Cannons were just going to steamroll them, and so maybe they just relaxed too much and never really got it back under control. But what does it mean for this Cannons team that they could not beat this Chaos team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Blaze has it in him to make 20 saves every game. He does. He's that good. And that defense is good too. I mean, Troy Ray has had a fantastic season. I mean, he held Marcus Holman, who just hit 500 points in his career this weekend, to 2 points, 1 goal, 1 assist. I mean, he's been very, very good this year. Jack Rowlett, kind of a perennial depoy candidate. The short sticks leave something to be desired a little bit.
A lot.
But what does that say about the Cannons? I mean, you gotta, obviously they were pulling Jack Rowlett up to guard Matt Campbell, who still had 4 points. And then Jared Newman was taking the Asher matchup, and Troy Ray was on Marcus. But you got to have like a Mick Kelly step up. You got to have a Ryan Drenner step up, and you just put something in the back of the net.
Well, I to your point, I look at it like this: the probably the most lacking spot for the Chaos is their midfield, short stick defensive midfield and offensive midfield, like hands down, just kind of bare cupboard kind of stuff. One of the strengths of the Cannons is their short stick defensive midfield and their offensive midfield. I mean, Matt Campbell is like arguably one of the best, if not the best, kind of midfielder in the league. And they just could not get... you expect coming into this game that's going to be one of their strong points and one of the things that they can really attack. Personally, I didn't love the idea of moving Jack Rowlett up to Matt Campbell. I don't think it was a good idea, and I don't think it really worked all that well. However, that being said, it did work in the sense that it did enough to take the Cannons out of their game and for the Chaos to win this game. So, like you're saying, it's crazy that's how it went. And then you talked about it earlier. Coulter Mackesy looked very good early, and then there was just nothing. Not that it's really all on him, because I don't think Asher did anything. I don't think Marcus Holman did much of anything. So it's not all on him. But it's like, where is this team's like?
We need a goal. Level? Go to this guy.
Right. You would think that Asher would be that guy, or Holman would be that guy, or at this point maybe Coulter Mackesy could step up, or Matt Campbell, and just none of them did at all.
Blaze made some great saves down the stretch too. I mean, there was one, and I think Holman might have gotten a little stick check, but I mean, he was kind of the reverse of what he did against the Archers to win the game. He came around the other side of the goal and had a good look, and Blaze just snuffed it out. I mean, Blaze made several really, really good saves in the fourth quarter. It's not like they weren't getting shots up. They didn't get as many as they needed to, but the ones that they got were pretty good, and Blaze just saved them. Yeah,
that's fair. That is a fair point. I think, came out on Twitter afterwards that, when Blaze makes 20 or more saves, the Cannons are 2-0. When he's under 20 saves, they're 0-3, which feels a little harsh. I feel like.
Well, but you look at the games, and obviously the Outlaws offense wasn't what they are now, but he's made the 20 save games against now probably the two best offenses in the PLL.
Yeah. Yep.
And they've won those games. So maybe he's like the college football team that kind of plays to their competition. But if we're going to say that all of the teams in the PLL can win every game any day, then that's their formula for a win, is Blaze making 20 saves, which I think another stat came out. I think in the PLL, there have been now 19 20 save performances. Blaze has 9 of them. So how many games have been played in the PLL? More than that. So I don't think you can count on that happening every week.
Yeah, no, for sure. With that being said, let's especially as we were discussing some of the, let's call it, healthy debate around Blaze and this Chaos team, but specifically around Blaze. Last week there was a lot of discussion about the best goalie in the world, and obviously Dobson and Liam Intamin were discussed. I felt a lot like people had kind of given up on Blaze maybe a little bit too early. I know clearly he did not have a good week last week. I think even the week before, I think he didn't look great either.
The week before was Philly, and he would have been on bye that week. So
okay, the game before that,
the Redwoods game in Charlotte.
Yeah, I think he had a better game than he had last week, but still not a Blaze kind of game. Definitely gave up some goals that I think he would have liked to save. So
yeah, I mean, they just had a 9-0 run or whatever it was, in the first and second quarter, and it's hard to find any rhythm there.
Yeah. So my question, not necessarily a goalie ranking, 1 through 8, where are all of these guys, but where do we feel like Blaze fits in this conversation? He's certainly on the backside of his career. I'm not suggesting he's done after this year or next year. As far as I'm concerned, I think he's got 5 years left, which was kind of my point when a lot of this stuff was being talked about about Blaze, and it's specifically centered around Blaze and where he fits in with, you know, Dobson and Liam Intiman and stuff, and then also where Logan McNaney fits in this conversation. Kind of two guys on the opposite ends of their career. Logan McNaney's only played 3 games. Blaze has been an MVP, and Blaze at this point has more goalie of the year awards in the PLL than Logan McNaney has games in
Yes.
the PLL. So two guys very much at opposite ends of their career. And where are you putting those guys?
Yeah, so I think one thing to say too is I think Dobson is probably 90-ish% healthy after being hobbled. I think he took the brace off last week, and so he was 90-95% last week, you know, this past weekend. But I do think he's number one. Then there's some gray area. I'll say this: Blaze on his best day is the best goalie in the world. I mean, when he makes 20 something saves, it's kind of hard to argue with that. Now he doesn't do that every week. He's done it. He's 40% on doing that in the season, and you know the team goes with him. I don't think. Well, I'm not going to finish that. And then I think Intiman is, you know, it's not a big gap between Dobson and Blaze and Intiman. And then I think you can confidently slide McNaney in, and it's very close. You know, if 2 and 3 are here, you know, McNaney's right here, and Dauber's probably right here. You know, it's a little bigger gap between the next category, but I don't think McNaney's far behind Intiman and Blaze right now.
Yeah. That was my kind of point about Logan McNaney is like, how many games do you have to see? Like when Liam Intiman came in the league last year and he was sitting behind Tim Troutner for a while, we all knew Troutner better just not let Int in, because the moment that Liam Intiman takes that field, he's going to be the starter for that team for the remainder of the time.
Yep.
And it was just, I thought, you know, 3 games into Liam Intiman's career, people were already like, this dude is the best goalie in the league. I'm not sure that was true, but people were saying it. And now all of a sudden, Logan McNaney is 3 years into his career. He looks every bit as good as most of the goalies in the league, and everyone's like, well, I mean, pump your brakes, like we want to see it. He's got to do it for a season before we do. And it's like, this is a dude
quit moving the goalpost.
Right, this is a dude that went to 4 straight national championships as a starting goalie at Maryland. Like we know who this dude is.
Yeah, well, you can take it even further, and people are saying, okay, well, why are you drafting a goalie in the 2nd round? And I can't remember. Let's see, who was the other goalie that it was between?
Emmett Carroll.
Which, you know, he's looked pretty good too. So he's done well. He's beat normal expectations. Obviously now, like I said, people are moving the goalposts, but he's also, I mean, he played a Waterdogs on a down week. You know, they scored 7 goals. He's played the worst offense in the league in the Archers. And then they did good against the Redwoods, and it wasn't on their 2nd game. Like I said, no pictures on a scorecard. I mean, he saved 60+% in all 3 games. So
yeah, he's at 63% through 3 games.
Yeah,
he's by far the best. Again, he played 3 games. You know, Dobson and Intiman have played 5, but they're both at 58%. So he's through 3 games, 2 less games. He is saving at a better clip than not a hugely better, but a better clip. I pause against. I push back just a little bit on, you know, the Waterdogs having a bad game, because I'm like, you know, how much of that is caused by him being in goal and making saves. I'm not saying he is the best in the world. I think I would have it the way that you had it, where it's Dobson, a small gap, Blaze and Int right there, 2 and 3. I don't care how you have them. If you think Liam Intiman's better, fine, whatever. If you have Blaze better, cool, whatever. Then another little gap, and then I'd have McNaney. What was crazy to me is people are like, Colin Kirst is up there, and I'm like, Colin Kirst is a very good goalie. Colin Kirst is like a bona fide 50 to 55% guy. He is going to give you 50 to 55% pretty much every single game. His worst games are going to be about 50%. His best games are going to be about 55. That's not 100%. He's done better. He's done worse. But generally speaking, 50 to 55% is what he's going to give you. He doesn't generally make like steal saves. I think the guys that we just mentioned will steal a save. Mm-hmm. I'm a big soccer guy. I know you're not huge into soccer, but Manchester United is my team, and we had David De Gea for 10, 12 years, whatever it was, and that dude was the best in the world at stealing a save. The reason he's not at United anymore is because he started giving up some goals that he shouldn't have, but he was always, in every single game, he'd make a save or two that you would just be like, holy crap, like he should not have made that save, and he did, and it kept us in games. Polkhurst, I don't think is that dude. I think he makes the saves he's supposed to make. Yeah. And he's like a rock solid 50-55% guy, pretty much without a doubt. You know when he's in goal, he's going to give you that. And I just don't see him stealing saves and stealing games.
Yeah, there are shots you can't make against Colkhurst. You can't make a 2-pointer that goes at his feet. He's good, sticks out high. But like you said, he's not stealing. Like when I think about stealing, say I think of Jack Concannon, who was always just
oh my gosh, so good.
The doorstep save master.
Jack Concannon is David De Gea, like to a T. Made those crazy saves routinely, just like 3-4 times a game. You'd be like, he should not be making that play, but then he'd give up some goals, and you're like, what are we doing? But I love Jack Concannon. I'm so glad you brought him up. Oh man, that made my day. But yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. He's and for me, when we talk about being like the best in the league, I think there's an element of that is necessary. You need to be a guy that's going to steal saves, that's going to steal games. We talked about Blaze being at 20 plus saves a game. Those are games that he's stealing. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. The Cannons should have won this game. If not for Blaze, they probably win this game. All due respect to Austin Kaut, whom I love. I think he's a very good goalie, and he's an incredible teammate. There's a reason why he has played, or he has been a part of this organization for so long, even though he almost never plays. But I think if you put Austin Kaut in that game, they probably don't win. Mm-hmm. So for me, in this whole conversation about goalie rankings, I think there's an element of being able to steal a game that is necessary in order to be in those upper echelons.
Yeah, 100%.
You got me. I'm still just thinking about Jack Concannon and some of those saves that dude was. Oh man, I did a graphic design once of him with him like it looks like the Michael Jordan like jump man pose. He's like jumped up making a save, his legs are split and everything. So good, so fun to watch. Anyway, the kind of next thought that I had is watching this game. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when pretty much the entire league was 2-1 and 1-2, and we are basically right there where everyone is 3-2 or 2-3. There are 4 teams that are 3-2, and there are 4 teams that are 2-3. it is crazy how finely balanced this league is right now. Our friend Michael Harrison tweeted out the other day, is this going to be the what was it, 2000, the 2011 or 2014? I can't remember, the MLL season where there were it was a 7-way tie, and it went like 3 or 4 tiebreakers deep for them to figure out who made the playoffs, and about whether or not this season is going to end up like that. And we talked about it a lot during the NCAA season. Dan Arestia tweeted out at the very beginning of the season, and it seems to be carrying over, that no one is good and everyone is medium. Do you think that's the case? Is anyone truly good this year, or are we just looking at a whole bunch of medium teams?
Yeah, I do think the Cannons are good. Obviously, this weekend does not say that, but I think they're good. I think they've got elite short sticks. They've got a serviceable face-off. Ethan Rawl and Owen Grant are game breakers at LSM. They have a good defense, and Curse does what he needs, and then they have a great offense. There's not there even more so than the Archers. There's not a place on their roster that you say, I don't know about this.
Yep.
And I love their head coach and their coaching staff. So I think that team is good. The Outlaws can be good if that offense continues to figure it out and put the pieces together. That will be a good team. Again, same recipe, great short sticks, good LSM play in transition. They've got Luke Weirman has been very good this year. He hasn't been great. He's been very good. The offense will, I think, continue to put the pieces together, and then we'll see with McNaney. We'll see if Michael Manley and Jesse Bernhardt in their older age, do those legs start to fade a little bit? But good. And then you kind of have another tier of kind of Atlas, Archers, Waterdogs, where you're like, okay, this team also can be good. The Archers got to figure it out on offense. The Atlas probably need to put it together a little bit more on defense, probably get a little healthier. I think the Atlas have the best specialist group in the league, probably. At face-off and goal. So they can be good. Like I said, the Archers just got to figure it out on offense. That defense is the best in the league. They need to get something together at the face-off, but they can get there. And who was the other team that I said? Waterdogs. Oh yeah, the Waterdogs are a team that's just great on paper. They've got a lot of promise on the defensive end. Need to figure out who your full-time starter is at goal, and just kind of hope that your offense, with CJ Kerr slotted in, figures it out, or continues to play at the level they have been. And then you have the other division of Whipsnakes, Redwoods, and I hate to put Chaos in that division, but for the fact that everybody's around 500, I'll go ahead and throw them in there. The Whipsnakes showed a lot of promise last time out. Obviously, a bye. This is probably the best bye to have, because now you have an extended 2-week bye going into a back-to-back neutral sites. So continue to get healthy, hopefully figure some things out on offense not as much figuring things out as putting the ball in the back of the net, is figuring out who's playing where. And then the Redwoods definitely have the pieces. We'll see if those rookies continue to mature. We'll see where Cole Kastner slots in. Does Dylan Malloy keep up this pace? Can they get some stuff out of Ryder? Who knows? And then Chaos, they just go as Blaze goes. How many more 20 save games does Blaze have in them?
7 this year. No, I don't think I agree. I don't think you're wrong. This is one of those things where it's like you're not wrong. Everything you say is true. I feel like yesterday's game notwithstanding, I do agree that I think the Cannons are kind of the top tier kind of team, like you said, just across the board. They have no real gaps. They are good at pretty much every position that you really need to be good at. They could be a little better at the face-off. Tucci's not having a great year, but they're also, like we've talked about several times, I don't think that's as important in this shot clock, especially in this 32-second shot clock era. But I think it's fair to say that despite what happened yesterday, they are kind of that number one team. I think the Chaos are not good. I think that's fairly, yesterday again notwithstanding, I think that's fairly fair to say. And then I just kind of feel like everyone else really is medium. I think like you can go down the list. Atlas, if Jeff T and Connor Schellenberger go off, Liam Intiman's doing well in goal, they can beat anyone. The Waterdogs, same sort of thing. Michael Sowers goes off, you get something good out of goal with Dylan Ward and or Matt DeLuca. They have kind of all the tools. CJ comes in and can kind of mesh with them. They can beat anybody. The Whip Snakes have shown that, with TJ Malone kind of being the face of that franchise and everybody kind of filling in kind of around him. Aiden Carroll looks, again, we didn't even get to talk about him because they didn't play this week. Right now, I would have him as the rookie of the year through some fairly stiff competition. They are capable of beating anyone. Obviously, we talked about the Archers, two-time defending champions. It just has to click for them. I think, like you said, them and the Cannons are the two kind of most complete teams, top to bottom, in terms of roster construction. Obviously, the Outlaws have the Tuaraton guys, and Logan McNaney looks great in goal. They again are getting better and are capable, I think, of beating anyone. And then of course the Redwoods are one of the most fun teams to watch, and I think when it clicks for them, they are capable of beating anyone. But also every team that I just mentioned also has question marks, has ways that not only can be beat but like have been beat this year.
100%.
Jeff Teat can go off for 8 in a game, but he also can be pretty quiet. He was not very good this weekend.
Yeah.
He's
looked very human this year after looking like an alien last year.
Yeah, and then of course, last week he goes off for eight points, and everyone's like, "See, he's still that dude." And it's like, yeah, great, but of his points, he's had an 8-point game and a 6-point game, and then he's got 2 1-point games and a 2-point game. So like, which Jeff T are we gonna get? Right. How it's, and then even when he's down, Connor Schellenberger goes off for 7 points. It's like, can we get everybody on the same page here? So I feel like it's a lot of medium, and that's not even necessarily an insult. I just think, again, the margins in this league are so thin that the worst team in the league is going to beat the best team in the league. Like it's crazy the level of parity that we have gotten this season from these teams.
Yeah, I think it's important to look ahead to, if we're going to say the home team's going to go 1-1 in their homestand. So we only have 3 homestands left. Archers at the end of July, Denver the week after, Boston the week after. The Archers play the Woods, then the Outlaws. It's kind of a tough draw. The Outlaws play the Chaos and then the Atlas. Also looking very 1-1-able.
1-1, yep.
And then the Cannons play the Redwoods and then the Whip Snakes. And to me, that's the biggest question mark, is what version of the Redwoods are you going to see? what version of the Whip Snakes are you going to see? Because that,
Mhm.
I mean, I factoring in the crowd, and this is biased because I'm a Utah Archers fan, but that was a fantastic crowd that I do think pulled the Archers through 2 games last year at home. And I think, I mean, it's not a very big stadium. I think it holds 8 or 10,000. You can expect it to be slam packed again this year. Um, and I think Denver is, a longtime lover city of lacrosse. You can expect it there too, and I think Boston's the same way. So I think 1-on-one's the floor for all of those teams. I really think that there could be 1, 2, or maybe even 3 teams that go 2-0 in their homestands, which is big for all of those teams.
I'm feeling like 1-1, but yeah, I'm not going to be too shocked, especially like you said, with the way that those crowds are and the way that they help. I know you were in Utah, right? You went to Utah last year, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Going
back again this year too.
Nice. I know you understand those crowds. I was in Boston, and it felt lesser because
I think that was July 4th weekend last year too.
Yes, and of those three that we've just mentioned, Boston is playing in like a 25,000 seat stadium. So even when they get the 8 to 10 or whatever kind of number, it feels like a smaller crowd than it does like in Utah when you get maybe a similar number, but it's that stadium is packed.
Yes. And you basically sit on top of the field.
Right, so. Right. But I will say, especially the Cannons, I can't remember if it was Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. I don't remember what it was, but the night game the Cannons played, that crowd was electric, and it absolutely felt like it had an influence on the Cannons winning that game. So it will be interesting to see, especially in those 3 markets, which should be, I think it's fairly safe to say that the home markets up until this weekend, I thought that California crowd was very, very good. Especially for the Redwoods games, they were very, very good. I think every tour stop before then has been missing something a little bit,
a little lacking.
A little lacking for sure. So I think those 3 that we've mentioned are going to be better. They're going to be very good crowds, and could have a pretty good impact on the ability of those teams to go 2-0 across the weekend. So I kind of laugh when you say you think 1, 2, or maybe even all 3 of them could go 2-0, because no one's done it this season. And as you listed off those games, I was like, that's a win, that's a loss, that's a win, that's a lot, whatever. So it's interesting, but I think those crowds could, like you said, have a pretty big impact on their ability to go 2-0. So it will be really interesting in this second half of the season to see how things are going to go down for sure.
100%.
With us now reaching the halfway point of the season, with the All-Star break coming up, it is a good time for us to take a look at each team's roster and ask one important question. I'm going to start with your Archers and ask, where exactly does Trey Leclerc fit when he comes back and is healthy? Like we talked about, they had Merklinger in this week's. Sam King has kind of, I don't know that he has necessarily a specific spot, but he's clearly kind of etched his place in that starting 6 in the offensive end. So where do you see Trey Leclerc starting or fitting for the Archers in this team right now?
Yeah, so I think a better question might be, when Trey Leclerc comes back, who doesn't dress? And I think right now it probably, obviously with Matt Moore being out, it's kind of 1 for 1. Merklinger goes out, Trey Leclerc goes in. When Matt Moore comes back, then you start asking, all right, is it Dyson? Is it a kind of a Cannon situation where even though Sam King has played super well, he goes to the reserve. Do you start thinking, okay, Mac hadn't been awesome so far. Do we try somebody else to attack there? And that's not my move, but I'm sure that all of those questions will be considered. Right now, I think it's unfortunate. I think it's Dyson that loses a spot. Maybe an unpopular opinion. It may be, Ryan Ambler that loses a spot. Now I know that the Archers offense is very centrally built around wanting to have 4 lefties and 4 righties. So it would be, I think, is Dyson left-handed or is he right-handed?
I want to say left, but I might be completely making that up. I watched that dude for 4 years at Duke, and I cannot tell you honestly. I want to say he's left.
So
he wouldn't be left, right?
So I know. Left. So right now, so obviously Fields is left-handed. O'Keefe is left-handed. Whoever is that right-handed attackman, whether it be Matt Moore, whatever, Matt Moore, Schreiber, Ament, and King are the righties. So maybe it is King who I can't see them dropping any of the other 3. But I know Trey's right-handed.
Dyson Williams is listed as left-handed.
For my money right now, it's Dyson. But Bates has been known to do his own thing through the draft or roster-wise. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of where that shakes out. But Trailer Car has to be in the lineup. I mean,
yeah, it feels like it's Dyson or Ryan Ambler. And as much as I want Dyson Williams to stay, it feels like Ryan Ambler is him and Tom Schreiber have that connection, and I don't know that Dyson has that with really anyone. The only thing that could maybe make it a little more interesting is, do you maybe rotate that position a little bit? Like, do you sit Mac for a game and see if it can like spark him, or do you try and make some juggling kind of situations? But yeah, I'm with you. It kind of feels like it's Dyson. So
yeah,
unfortunately, one, because I'm a Duke guy and he's a Duke guy, but then also because you're like, man, that dude is so good in the NLL. It feels like he should have a bigger role in this team, but it might just be one of those situations where, especially with the success of Sam King so far, that there's just not enough spots available for them. So let's move on to the Atlas, where I think the big roster question for the Atlas is, have we seen the last of Miles Jones in an Atlas uniform?
I don't think so. I think really, like the team that comes to mind when I say this as, matchup based kind of rotation is the Cannons. They've been very willing to shuffle guys through the lineup based on, okay, this team has better short sticks that you need to have Dodgers for. This game, you want more off-ball guys. I think that may be a situation where, he's not going to be an every game guy like a Brian Costabile or a Matt Trainer has become, but there will be certain situations where you will want what Miles Jones brings to the table there.
Yeah. I'm really torn on this because I think Miles Jones was playing well at the start of the season. When he sat him, it didn't make any sense to me.
No.
It clearly worked for them in that first game. And arguably it worked for them this past week as well. So you kind of can't really argue with the results. They've won the 2 games that Miles has sat. But it also feels kind of harsh because I don't think he was playing poorly at the time. So it feels weird, but I think because he was playing well, and they sat him, and they have won 2 games since then. I'm leaning maybe a little bit more towards, yeah, that's the last that we've seen of Miles, which is crazy because it just seems to have come out of nowhere. But why not try and move him if like you said, maybe there is some kind of a situational rotation going on, but otherwise, why not move him? Like he's going to be sought after. I think he's too good of a player. There are still several teams that could use Miles Jones' talent and ability. So, you know, I don't know why you sit him and like what's the justification to bring him back? It's working. So, you know, maybe it's one of those things where like you kind of hold on to him and at such a point when it stops working or something, you know, you can bring him back. But I think I'm leaning more towards him being gone from the Atlas, which again, it just feels crazy to think about given the way that this season started. Moving on to the Waterdogs, we have the question on probably everyone's mind. It was announced at the end of the Waterdogs game this past weekend that CJ Kirst is expected to be with the team playing in Chicago when we get back from the All-Star break. So given the success that the Waterdogs have had, and as we mentioned when we were talking about the Waterdogs earlier, kind of the balance of that offense and how it has looked, where do you see CJ Kirst lining up for the Waterdogs?
Well, my thing with, so do you add him to the attack line is you look at what happened with Xander Dixon when he was playing midfield for the Atlas, or more so what happened when he moved to attack for the Atlas. Mm-hmm. You know, he's kind of the same. He and Jake Taylor are very much similar players of more off-ball guys, but, you know, they need to be in and around the crease, you know, 8 yards and in. Mm-hmm. So, but it's also the fact that, you know, he plays attack, just run him out of the box. He's still playing offense. You know, that's not the same as playing attack. So it'll be really interesting to see. I did notice that Sowers was not playing X all of the time. He was playing more behind the goal still, but he wasn't, you know, directly behind the goal. He was more on I guess if you're looking at the goal, on the left side. So maybe they were kind of warming that up for Kirst to be that X guy. So it'll be really interesting to see. But I mean, I think Jake Taylor has 9 goals on the season, so it's somebody that you probably don't want to leave out of the lineup. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough because I'm with you. I feel like that offense is so balanced and everybody has their role. And I've said the same thing about Jake Taylor, is that the model here is Xander Dixon. And I think you can, you know, the Westberg used to do it a decent amount where he would like run out of the box, but he would play that kind of like crease midfielder kind of role. Mm-hmm. And he was in and around. So, you know, it's possible to do run Jake Taylor out of the box and still have him play kind of a similar role. And maybe that's the best option, because then you can get CJ, whether he's running at X or he's running out there on that right wing. I think who was it? We were talking about, maybe it was the Outlaws. We were talking about yes, the Outlaws. Pat Cavanaugh was technically playing that right attack spot, but what he often does is kind of like picks up the ball and then moves to X and kind of dodges from X. So even though he's occupying that right-handed spot, he's really kind of an X attackman. And I think you could do something similar with CJ where maybe Sowers is your X attackman and he's mostly working from X, but then also CJ is as well. CJ also played outright for Cornell. So, you know, it's kind of a natural spot for him, and he can still pull people back to X and dodge. So maybe that is the best solution, is to run Jake Taylor out of the box and just have him kind of be a crease midfielder. But I do worry about how it's going to affect the way that offense has worked all season So I'm not entirely sure that I wouldn't run CJ out of the box, especially at first. Maybe get him through this season, maybe finish out the season that way, but at least kind of get him up to the pace of play and stuff for the next couple of weeks there. So it is going to be interesting to see what they do, because I'm not sure that there's a wrong answer, but there might not, but the answer that they go with might not be the right answer, if that makes any sense. So
you got to pick the most right answer.
Right, for sure.
Or the least wrong.
Yeah, the least wrong, for sure. Moving on to the whips, same sort of question as with the Outlaws. Have we seen the last of Matt Rambo for the whips?
Yes.
Have we? Let's go a step farther, since you were so quick on yes. Have we seen the last of Matt Rambo in the PLL?
Probably.
It does feel like if it doesn't work for the whips, it's done. He's done. Like that is the situation for him. And if he can't do it for them, he's done.
Yeah.
And
you're starting to see the evolution, because really, how much longer does Rob Pennell have? I mean, he's still playing well and doing good things for that offense, but you're starting to see, okay, they've got Brandow, they've got Carroll, they've got Levi Anderson, they've obviously TJ Malone is the guy for the next 8 or 10 years, but you're seeing this is definitely a passing of the torch season for that Redwoods attack, or that Whipsnakes attack line. Yeah.
It's crazy that they moved on from Zed, and obviously he's injured, so we're not seeing him on the field right now, but it's crazy that they moved Zed and kept Rambo, and now it looks like Rambo is probably done. I'm not sure that I'm going to go as far as saying that we will not see him for the whips again this year. I think I'm going to say that there's probably 2 more games that we see Rambo this year. But it certainly feels like we're at the end, which is crazy, because I also feel like I kind of feel like Matt Rambo just doesn't, not that he doesn't want to play. Clearly he wants to play. That's why he's here. I don't think that he cares about playing, if that makes any sense. He feels like a guy that doesn't do the homework, if we can take it back to like grade school. He feels like a guy who just doesn't really, he just comes and plays. Like he's just a baller. He just shows up and he just plays, and then he goes home and he does his home stuff. And I would like to think that if Matt Rambo, this off season just straight up dedicated himself to being the best player he could be next season, he could still be a decent player. I just don't think he wants to do what it would require for him to be at that level.
Well, the thing about Matt Rambo is he plays lefty attack or nothing. He can't run out of the box. You've got your guy at X and TJ, or Pennell, and so it's that lefty attack spot or the reserve roster. So that's just his play style. It doesn't fit. You saw it didn't work in Champ Series, and so you can't run out of the box as Matt Rambo.
Yeah. So I say 2 games because I'm leaving open maybe some matchup, and I'm also leaving up a room for like there's some kind of injury or something that he gets. But generally, I think I would tend to agree with you that even if he gets 2 games this year, it feels like this is the end of Matt Rambo's career. He's already done with the NLL, so it is what it is at this point. Moving on to the Chaos. Honestly, there's not even a specific roster question for the Chaos. The question is larger than that, and that is, are we going to see them make any moves for guys? There are several names that are available. Cole Kurse, Nakai Montgomery,
Brendan Nick Turn.
several. Brendan Nick Turn, who
that would be, if I was going to make one phone call, it would be to the Red, or it's not even to the Redwoods. He's claimable.
Right.
It would be to Brendan Nick Turn saying, "Hey, we want you to come play X for us."
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably call all three of the names you just mentioned, and Knack and or even like a Ryan Ogman too. I mean, you just raid the Redwoods roster, but
yeah.
I think that those are the four. You know, I don't think all four get called, but I would say at least two should be, and one and Nick Turn is a must add.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree about Brendan Nick Turn. I think you have to call that dude. You have to do whatever you can. I'm not leveraging the future of this team. I'm not sending out a whole bunch of draft picks or a first rounder or anything crazy. Obviously they don't have to because he's claimable, but all I'm saying is like I'm doing whatever I can to get that dude on this team because I think they need someone that can come in and fill that role. And he makes so much sense. And I think he could really have a huge impact on Owen Hiltz and vice versa. I think that could be a very, very good combo for them. But kind of to your point, I'd be calling anyone and everyone because you just don't have, unless Sergio Perkovic is going to turn back into Notre Dame Motor City Hitman day in and day out for this Chaos roster. And even if he did, you just don't have the horses to run this year. And
and I think you can get that from Ogman being however many years younger than Perkovic he is. It's a guy that you could probably take with you for the next 2 or 3 seasons. Go ahead and get him integrated into your locker room, into your system. I don't know how Perk is how old, 30?
I think he's 30. Yeah.
Ogman, I think was a 2022 draft pick. So he's probably 26, 27 now. So you got a little bit fresher legs, younger legs. So that's a bigger one for one. But like I said, I do think you call Brendan Nick Turn immediately and say, "Hey, we've got a spot for you at X today."
Yeah. 100%. Nick Turn is 100% that first phone call, I think. But everyone that we mentioned, I think could be impactful. We talked about earlier about the midfield of the Chaos. Holkhurst could come in and I think start. And
that's one
right off
that I'm
bat.
not 100% sure he's claimable. I think there's something weird about if you have a homestand and you're left off the reserve roster. I do think it counts for 2 games, so that would make him claimable. If it's 3 weekends, I don't think he's claimable yet. But Knack, Nick Turn, and Ogman was just actually released. So all 3 of those are definitely waiver wire addable right now.
Yeah, for sure. They had anyone and everyone that I could find. I'd be calling. I'd be trying to get anyone and everyone. Will Manny was protected last week, so he's not available. But I'd be figuring out if I could get him. Even though he plays the same position as Owen Hiltz, and maybe that's not the best, but anyone, that offense needs help, and anyone that I felt like I could grab, I would do. So
it would be cool to see Iker and Nick Turn play together again too. So
that'd be fun.
That'd be
really
West
fun.
Point guys. So
yeah, and that's the crazy part to me that Nick Turn hasn't even dressed, because the whole thing was that he was available this year, that they had done the research. He was going to be available. He was a good signing. They needed an ex-attackman, and Dylan Malloy has played better than I think most of us expected, but you still got to figure Brendan Nick Turn should have at least gotten a look at this by this point.
The
fact that he hasn't been in there.
I mean,
right.
High turnover numbers, but it's the first year in the league. I mean, you saw what happened. I mean, I don't think Asher really had the turnovers in the PLL, but that was his main question coming out of college. And so if you fit into a system, and obviously you're passing the guys that are better than guys at High Point, those numbers should go down.
Watch yourself. No, but yeah, you're right. And that Chrome team wasn't very good. Like I think he was trying to make stuff happen a lot, and that was part of those high turnover numbers. But yeah, they should call Brennan Nichtern 100% right now if they haven't already. Speaking of the Woods, let's move on to the California Redwoods. Romar Dennis had a big game this weekend. I say big game. We say big game. He hit two pointers.
Right.
Not that that's nothing, but like 2 shots is what we're talking about.
It's big in the scheme of things if the rest of your offense plays well. So he had 4 of their 9, points.
4 board points, yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, but now then you have to ask the question. Okay, so you're going to dress 5 midfielders on a game day weekend.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't even ask the question. The question is, did Romar earn a spot moving forward with the Wits? Continue.
So you've got McAdory, you've got English, you've got
Locks.
Yes. And then, I mean, like a Balcarel is another guy that they seem to really, really like. Mm-hmm. And then you got to pick, let's see, 2 of Bertrand, Hanley, Romar. And they're all big guys that kind of do the same-ish things. I think you get a little bit more assist upside with Hanley. I mean, Bertrand's a Team USA guy. And then you have the 2-point threat with Romar. So it'll be really interesting to see. And maybe they decide to go, sit Balcarel a weekend and dress all 3 of the big guys. But like you said, I think McAdory and English are both very locked in.
Locks, yeah.
And then I say you lean Balcarel and then you take 2 of the 3 big guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you're saying, McAdory, English, Locks, they are going to be on this roster every single week that they are healthy. I think Balcarel is basically right there with them. They like him. He has played well. I can see a world in which he doesn't start, but I don't think it actually happens. So that's 3 right there. They traded for Sam Hanley, 2-3 weeks ago, and I think he wasn't amazing this week. Yeah. But I think he's been good. I don't.
It's a former first round pick.
Right.
Who people thought that he was going to be the number 1 overall pick.
Right. Barring that he just falls off the face of the earth. And even that is going to take 4 or 5 weeks of him doing that. I think he's as close to a lock right now as he can be. So really, that's 4 guys right there. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, you got Charlie Bertrand and Romar Dennis. And then, I mean,
unless you decide to go light on a D-mid and say English and McAdory are going to pick up D-mid shifts. So then you would dress Carter Rice and Tevlin, and then you could take all 3 big guys.
To me, the real question here is between Sam Hanley and Romar Dennis, because I think they do so much of the same thing, in different ways, but they kind of give you the same thing. I feel like some of Romar they had a doubleheader. The reason I think Romar got that second game this weekend was because it was a doubleheader, and because he is that dude in that kind of local area, and I think whatever. I don't know that you dress both of them though. And right now it feels like Sam Hanley is more locked in to that spot than Romar. Sam Hanley in considerably less games has 4 points and Romar has 5.
Yeah.
He's got those 2 2-pointers from this weekend and 1 assist.
Right.
I don't know. It feels like he had a good game. I don't know that he's really earned I'm not saying he won't play at all the rest of the season, but I don't think that was enough to sway what they do or don't do through the future is essentially my point.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to the Cannons. The question there for them is their kind of revolving door midfield, and maybe taking that a step farther is what they do with Will Manny moving forward. He has had some family stuff going on. Everything that I've heard from people who should know is that he's not playing because of lacrosse reasons. Like, they didn't make the decision to play Coulter Mackesy over Will Manny. He's got some other things happening kind of outside of lacrosse, and that's why he hasn't been playing. So assuming those things get taken care of and he comes back, and kind of the way that they have rotated through this midfield, are we going to see any kind of solidification there?
I don't think so. And I think they just have they're very deep on offense. I mean, you have guys like Jonathan Donville that aren't dressing consistently. I think they've been very impressed with what they've gotten from Mick Kelly. Coulter Mackesy has played well. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say Ryan Drenner. I think most people like Ryan Drenner. Like, nobody thought he was a bad player, but I think everyone is a little bit surprised at how well he has played this year.
Yes. So if you were gonna talk locks in their midfield, it would be Campbell and Ryan Drenner, and it looks like they've really liked. I can't remember which curse that is. That plays is that.
I was thinking the same thing.
It's not Cole. Connor. Yeah, Connor cursed.
Connor. Yep.
Connor curse. So then you're looking at two guys. So you have Mick Kelly, you have Verdaro, you have Hogg, you have Donville. So, and then I don't know Manny. And Manny, and then I don't know what is Bubba Fairman out for the season?
I don't know.
Because then if he comes back, then you potentially could see Jeff Traynor taking offensive midfield runs, because you have Ramsey, Bubba, and Goodrich. So then it just compounds the problem. And I do think they're very matchup based as well, but eventually you're just going to say, these are our 8 guys on offense. We gotta play these last 4 games together and in preparation for the playoffs. Yeah,
I'm going to say that the Cannons are the ones I feel like I have the least kind of grip on, because they do kind of rotate through and make matchup based decisions. I mean, like you said, obviously Campbell and Drenner are there, consistently across the board. But then, everyone else I think has missed. Yeah, Verdaro's played 2 games. I think pretty much everyone else has missed at least a game. It looks like Connor Kirst has played in all 5. So, it's interesting. And the fact that Will Manny could, assuming that his off the field stuff gets sorted out before the end of the season, could come in and join that midfield, or potentially attack and push Coulter Mackesy up, or whatever they do. And then, like you said, if Bubba comes back and Jeff Traynor can start running some offensive midfield, I'm with you. It feels like that's just going to be their MO this year. It's just like, who are the guys that we think give us the best chance this week against this opponent? How can we rotate through, keep defenses kind of guessing on that sense? So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of decisions they make against certain opponents, and how those do and don't work, how they maybe affect playoff matchups or something. That could be a really fun thing to kind of keep track of, for sure. But yeah, the Cannons are the one that is, I feel the less, I feel
there's
the
a lot of
least
teams
kinda,
that you could say, if we had a playoff game today, here's your 19 man.
yeah, for sure.
And the Cannons are a team that I would not feel confident in rolling out a 19 man and matching it up one that Coach Holman would put out.
Right, for sure. So, with that being said, let's move on to the very last team on our list, the Outlaws. And my question for you is, do the Outlaws have everything that they need? And let's go even a step farther. Not just do they have everything they need on the roster, but do they have it figured out in terms of who's playing where? Let's take it that step farther.
I think so. I do think there's a world where you say, let's bring Eric Law in and let Brennan run out of the box or Wiz run out of the box and let them dodge shorties all day. Or you put a short stick on Law and he just kind of plays a Jay Carlson, Wes Berg game of just being fantastic around the crease. At this point, I think they would have tried it by now. I would love to see him dress maybe kind of like a Romar situation this week where he dresses for one game in Denver. I don't want nobody owes anybody anything, but that would be really cool to see. But yeah, if they had a playoff game tomorrow, the roster they had in San Diego would be the one going to that playoff game. And I don't know. Like I said earlier, there's not anybody that matches up one-on-one with O'Neal. There's not anyone that matches one-on-one with Jared Bernhardt. So they're going to, that's going to be an important scout for a lot of teams. I don't know let me look up their schedule on the back. I know they play the Archers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. I think they do have everything they need. I'm not entirely sure that they have gotten it completely sorted out. Also, before we move on, talk about a guy that the Chaos need to make a phone call about, Eric Law. I don't know that he's willing to, make the move and everything. I think he's a Denver guy. And maybe that's kind of what's prevented him from being taken from them, but you think I wouldn't make that phone call? You're wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if he's claimable yet. I think they've shuffled him through the protected.
Has he been protected?
Yeah.
So I legitimately don't. I legitimately have not seen their roster well enough to know, but
yeah,
those protection rules are funny.
Their back half is Whips, Cannons, Archers in Salt Lake, and then they finish on their homestand with Chaos and Atlas and are on bye the week before the playoffs.
The one thing that I would say is I don't love their midfield, Jared Bernhardt aside, obviously, who's played great. I thought this collection of Dalton Young and Graham Bundy and Justin Anderson and Jack Van Overbeek would be better than what we have gotten from them.
Yeah.
So if I was going to make a move for them, it would probably be in the midfield, but I don't know who's really out there that improves them a whole lot. Cole Kirst is.
Sorry.
Cole Kirst is probably that one kind of like decent profile midfielder, but I don't know that he really improves over what they've got.
You would be finding somebody to play over Vano, probably. I think he's got maybe 2 assists on the season.
2 assists. Yep.
So that would be the one spot. I wouldn't look to make a move over anybody else.
No. And again, Cole Kirst is probably that dude that is, he's better than Jackson Van Overbeek, but is it worth making a move for a high profile guy like that that's going to be better than like your last midfielder? Is it really worth that move?
If you were going to make a move, you would want somebody that was better than Anderson and Young, and you would want another alpha in the midfield.
Yeah,
and I think if you had to trade a Dalton Young or a Justin Anderson, I think that move may be worth it. But I'm not the head coach of the Outlaws, and I don't I try and keep up with the league, but I don't keep up with teams like I do the Archers.
Yeah, you are definitely the Archers guy. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't think there's a move out there that I would pull, and I feel like the offense is starting to figure itself out. The defense has looked way better with McNaney in goal. That's another thing we don't talk about enough when we talk about goalies, which we did earlier. It's not just about making the saves. I think it's about your command and your presence in goal, your ability to move the defense to where you want them and stuff. And also, I think there's also that subconscious thing of when you're a defender and you know the guy behind you is more than likely going to make a save, you do things differently and you're willing to take more chances and stuff. And I think it makes it subconsciously allows that defense to perform better. And I think that there's a lot to be said about the confidence that defense in front of Logan McNaney has now with a guy that they feel confident in behind them. So
right.
They definitely have the pieces that I think they need, but we'll see how they put it all together. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of The Runout. Brandon should be back next week, though he will be at the All-Star game. So we'll see. Maybe Jackson Van Vlake will be a returning guest next week. We will see what happens. If you liked what you heard today, drop a rating, leave a comment, share it with someone who loves lacrosse. All of those things really, really help the show grow. We are also on X and Instagram at RunoutPod, on both X and Instagram. Come argue with us, send us a hot take, or leave a question for us to answer. We will be back next week with more. So until then, as always, we'll see you in the comments.